Welcome back to KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM. You're listening to The Joe Miller Show. Blessed to have with us Bryan White. Bryan White is an American country music star. He's had a number of major hits. He had self-titled debut album that was released, I think, in 94. He was age 20, and 96 released Between Now and Forever. Both were certified, I believe, platinum, or at least one of them was. In 97, The Right Place, it was certified gold. And his fourth album, 99, How Lucky I Am, produced 2 top 40 singles. So I'm sure you've all heard of Bryan White. Bryan White was up here in 2010, helped me out during the U.S. Senate campaign then. Stayed in contact with him ever since. He's a patriot, loves America, has a wonderful life story. And I think we're going to play a couple of tracks that he's also shared with us on today's show, but I'm going to let him handle that. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. It's good to talk to you again. I hope you're staying warm where you are.
That's kind of hard in Alaska, but, we've had our share of global warming, so this year hasn't been as bad as past years. I'm sure that you're doing pretty good in, you're Tennessee right now?
Yeah, I want to say I'm cold, but I can't complain. I can't say anything about being cold with you on the phone, so I have no room to whine.
When I tell people when they tell me they're cold, I say, hey, you've never spent 4 winters in Tok, Alaska. Tok, Alaska is some of the coldest places in the world. At 70 below zero, we experienced that for a number of days a few years back, and that is frigid. Well, anyway, we're here to talk about you, Bryan, and your story. Obviously, we'd like to play some tracks. You have a number of new things coming out, but I'm going to let you kind of tell our audience a little bit about you and where you're at. I mean, you've had a fairly long musical career, and I'll try to do the math on this. I guess you're, 40 years old, something like that?
Yes, sir. Yes, correct, yeah.
Started 2 decades ago, so obviously engaged in music at a young age, right?
Yeah, I was born in Oklahoma and grew up in a real musical family, so, I sort of got it honest. My mom and dad were musicians, and so they, sort of passed it on to me, and I got bit by the bug, and somewhere around, 14 or 15, I started out playing drums and then eventually moved into, playing guitar and singing around 14 or 15, and then it was kind of over with. I kind of got bit by the music bug, and the rest is history, I guess.
So as a kid, where did you play? Were you a performer or play at church? What was kind of the context?
Early on, I would play at different, church functions and different, things that I could be a part of, but I couldn't really do anything beyond that. It was more like just church and family functions and things like that. And then when my dad saw that I was, serious about the drum side of things, he started sort of incorporating me into what he did, and I got to start performing with him, and my mom a little bit from time to time, and then there was a venue that opened up in Oklahoma City that started. It started in the late '70s, but I got hip to it as I was moving into my teens. It was called the Oklahoma Opry, and it was a great atmosphere, a great place to cut my teeth and really start learning about what it means to entertain an audience, and just trying to find my place as a performer. And it was a great place that you could go and be in a great atmosphere. And I did that pretty regularly from the age of 15 to 18, till I moved to Nashville. And I credit that family to that whole group of people that with the Oklahoma Opry to a lot of my success, because that's really where I feel like I sort of started figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do musically,
So when you started out in Nashville, what was kind of the drive? Was it just good music? You wanted to produce something that people liked? What was really the heart and soul behind it at the beginning?
I was I came to town I just wanted to be involved with it somehow. I had this gift as a drummer. I really wanted to play drums. I didn't know I didn't know how that was going to pan out. But I also sang, and so I kind of came to town with the two loaded guns, so to speak. I just didn't know which way it was going to go, and I met a few people that sort of were very connected. One was Glenn Campbell. Glenn Campbell signed me to my first publishing deal as a songwriter when I was 18. I moved to town when I was 18 and started writing songs for his company. And so Glenn was kind of one of those first people that, kind of gave the nod to me as a vocalist, so that he really helped my confidence a lot. And everybody within that company, the publishing company, they were just a real instrumental in helping me develop, A, as a writer, B, as a performer. And it just sort of, they helped me to sort of become a social butterfly in town, so to speak. And I eventually started meeting other songwriters and other publishers and kind of developed a rapport as a singer and started singing demos for other songwriters and other publishers. And I met a few people, again, that were, producers. I met a guy named Billy Joe Walker Jr., who really, believed in me and just really poured all of his efforts and all of his energy into me as an artist and started developing me, and we started recording things, and he eventually started taking me around to labels, and I landed a recording contract with Asylum Records, which is under the Warner Elektra umbrella, and that's kind of how
20 at that time?
I was 18 when I moved to town, but I would say over a 2-year period, that all of that stuff really came to pass,
That's
so it was
extraordinary.
relatively quick. Yeah.
I mean, you hear all these nightmares about Nashville and about people going there, and they get consigned to being a waiter or waitress. It's for some a very lonely place, problem filled. It sounds like though you hit the ground running.
Yeah, I did. I was very fortunate, and even looking back, I'm even more grateful just to look at the people and the character, the people that I believe God put me around, and so I really feel like I was protected through a lot of that, and just a great company of people around me through all that stuff.
Is that a perspective that you have now and always have had, or is it? In other words, tell us a little bit about when you came to the recognition that you really felt that God had His hand on you.
I think that really didn't dawn on me until, maybe a decade ago, because the 90s for me were so crazy. It was just so, I was living out of a suitcase, and I was gone for, 230 plus days a year for a 6 or 7 year period, and I was fresh out of high school, grew up in church, but didn't have the strongest foundation. I was one of those kids that, I went to church on special occasions. It wasn't a real big deal to me. And I would go to church camp and, chase girls and get saved on Friday, at the end of the week. I was that kind of kid. I was like, oh yeah, I know what Jesus did for me and all this, but I never really grasped the whole. It was more like a badge I wore. So all that to say, I really didn't have a real authentic relationship with God, and so I kind of came to town and went off without a foundation. And when you start having success and you start building it all on the wrong stuff, so that's kind of how it was with me, what happens when you start having that kind of success, you start kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and thinking you're, just a little cooler than you really are,
Right.
And so I say all that to say I didn't really, I knew that I was blessed, but I don't think it was nearly as clear, that God had His hand on me until I came out of all of that,
Well, and I see on Wikipedia it says that you ended your active performance the year 2000. And that you started back up in 2005. So I assume that after the 6 to 7 years that you were basically gone 230 days a year. Did you burn out at that point? Did you come to a realization you just couldn't continue doing that kind of aggressive agenda? What happened?
Joe, it was pretty rough. I had a rough, that period where I took that time off was very difficult for me. I was one of those kids, again, back to the kind of the faulty foundation. I really was not the kind of guy to stand up and say, no, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. I'm exhausted. I can't just go. I kind of felt like, so sort of like a puppet, you know. I just sort of did what everybody wanted me to do, the label or management, you know, and of course they're doing their job, but at the same time that you're a box of cereal that they're constantly trying to push, and they're all making a ton of money off of you at the same time. But I didn't have the strong enough will to stand up for myself and you know, just say no, and that cycle just wore me completely out, and so much so that it really took its toll on me. You know,
Bryan, we're gonna pick that up after this break. Stay with us. Bryan White talking about his musical career. I think we're going to hear a couple of clips from his new songs as well. The Joe Miller Show, back with you in a few. Welcome back to KOAN Hot Talk 1080 AM, 95.1 FM. The Joe Miller Show. We have Bryan White with us, American country music artist. He has 2 platinums, self-titled debut album, Bryan White, and also the album Between Now and Forever. Also has The Right Place certified gold in his 4th album. How Lucky I Am produced 2 top 40 singles. And I was asking Bryan during the break what makes an album platinum, and it's 1 million copies sold. And, of course, generally many more copies than that. I would assume that, Bryan, both of those albums did quite well. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Wanted to pick up where we left off, where you were talking about what brought you to the break point. You apparently were hot and heavy into the music scene and then took a 5-year or so hiatus. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about what brought you to that point?
Yeah, Joe. Well, it's a mean, well-oiled machine that's moving really fast, you know. And you gotta. The best analogy I can think of is I felt like, you know, how you see a cartoon or something where a locomotive is going real fast and there's somebody hanging on to the caboose, you know, and they're just kind of flying in the wind. That's what I felt like for that whole decade, you know. So, you know, that took its toll on me. Just you always felt like you were trying to outdo your last hit. You know, you always felt this immense pressure to outdo the last thing you did, and there's this constant competition with everybody on the charts, and everybody's critiquing what you're doing all the time. It seems like when you have success, it's almost the worst thing that can happen to you in some ways, you know, because the success makes you start second guessing yourself, and the stakes get higher and all that. So it's, you know, a lot of people don't realize that it actually gets tougher when you start having that success, you know, because there's always the fear of, well, what if the next thing doesn't do something? And so, you know, I think that fear and that scrutiny that came from outside my camp and different, you know, press and radio and different things, it really started taking its toll on me. And my 4th record, you know, didn't do as well, and it really kind of messed with me. I thought that was the end of the world, and it really wasn't. For me personally, I felt like, oh God, I had an album that didn't do as well as all the other 3, but that was because of just the constant building up around me, you know, and a couple of my really close friends at that time, which I won't name names, but said some things to me that really kind of crushed me about my voice and my confidence and who I was as an artist, and it devastated me so much so that I lost my voice for a long time, and you know, I found myself out on the road with you know, 30 people paying all these people, you know, all these tons of people and tour buses and traveling and flights, and here I was going into a deep depression because all of a sudden I was second guessing my voice and afraid to sing, and that one thing that was always so second nature to me, which was performing and singing, all of a sudden I felt like I'd lost control of it, you know. But at the same time, I looking back now, I can say I know what that was. I really believe that. I really honestly believe with every part of me that was really God's will. Because of that, you know, losing my voice and my confidence and all those little things that happen like that, good or bad, they really did lead me to God. It led me back to God in such an authentic way that it was a really amazing upheaval in my life, and it caused me to really start changing my life in a real unique, authentic way. You know, I mean, it when you get scared and you're you feel like you're not in control, you start looking up. For me, I feel like I'm like a Proverbs 22:6 kid. You know, I turned back to the seed that was planted in me. You know, and it changed my life. You know, so losing my voice really changed my life. And I met this amazing woman from Tulsa, Oklahoma, that we met in Hollywood of all places, and we've been married almost 15 years, and we started having kids and started a family, and I mean, and the rest is history. You know, I started getting inspired again, and the voice started coming back, and I started wanting to make music again. So that's what I've been doing ever since, I'd say, like you said, probably 2005, 2006, I'm out rocking again, and just grateful to be alive and grateful that people still want to hear my music everywhere, you know.
And I was going to ask you about the family and whether or not you had one during that time frame that you were on the road 230 days a year. I mean, that would be exceptionally difficult for a family to take that.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. I didn't. I was at a gathering this morning with some of my dear friends, and we're trying to kind of get reconnected because we all have seasons of our life where we're going crazy, and when we've been trying to meet on Wednesday mornings, and that was one of the things that kind of came up this morning about, you know, what would I have done had I had a family during that time period and been gone that much, you know, and when I started thinking about it, it got me really choked up because it kind of dawned on me that, you know, again, I see that as another way that God was really protecting me from a lot of you know, potential bad things in my life, and I don't think nothing can survive when a dad is gone that much. I mean, I know that there are dads that travel, and I travel for a living, but I have much more control over what I do, you know, these days, and if something compromises my family and being home with my two sons, you know, it's an immediate no, you know. So
yeah, that's phenomenal that you had the opportunity to learn from that earlier experience and now to put into play the priorities that you need with your family. Now, you have produced a couple of recent songs. I would assume that the one that is entitled Another Day in the Sun actually takes the genesis or the creative origin of it is probably much of the experiences that you've faced, both the loss of the voice and then coming back into performance. Is that right?
Yeah, you know, like I was telling you off the phone and on a little while ago, I try to really write from personal experiences. I mean, not everything I write is from an actual autobiographical experience, but I'm pulling from my experiences anyway, whether it's a fictional story or if it's my story. But this one in particular is, I just wanted to write a song that was encouraging to me, but also would be encouraging to somebody else out there that's maybe had a really good run at whatever they've done in life, and they fell in a pit. You know, they didn't think they would ever get out of this dark pit, and they've had a rough go at it.
Well, we're gonna try to squeeze that track in here before this next break, Mr. Producer. I appreciate, by the way, Bryan, you sharing these with us. Mr. Producer, if you could go ahead and play Another Day in the Sun for us.
See the sunrise breaking through the clouds, and I'm waking up to blue sky. It's finally
right, and we'll have more from Bryan White after this break. He has another release that if we have time we'll get to, and of course more comments from Bryan White as well. Stay with us. Welcome back to KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM, The Joe Miller Show. Yes, I said Hot Talk, and yes, we just played some music. Last segment, you're going to hear some more on this segment. Bryan White's with us, a platinum holder. 2 albums went platinum, 1 gold. Had a couple of top 40s in his album, How Lucky I Am, and producing new hits. The last one we heard, Another Day in the Sun. Bryan, you told us a little bit about what motivated that song. This other song, the new song, What I Already Know, can you tell our audience a little bit about that before we play a section of that song?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a fan-supported record, and this is a brand new record called Shine that just came out. So these are all kind of where my head is these days. This song is about, when we're all struggling in our faith, sometimes we just need a little bit more faith to believe what we already know. And that's a real honest place for me and for a lot of people too. And that's really what this song's about. And this is one of my favorite songs that I've ever written. I love this song.
All right, Mr. Producer, if you'd go ahead and play it.
Life has been a teacher, an enemy and a friend. And at times I've been a sinner and a saint. I've been known to lose my temper, my patience and my pride. But I've never lost my need to pray. Some truth revealed to me, or some sacred thing to hold. All I really need is just a little more faith to believe what I already know. Said you'd never leave me, you'd walk right by my side. But right now all I feel is alone, 'cause I can't see your angels watching over me. Oh, but Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so. Well, I don't need some mountain move for me, or some miracle to behold. All I really need is just a little more faith to believe what I already know. To part for me, to catch a glimpse of those streets of gold. All I really need is just a little more faith to believe what I already know. Yeah,
So this album that you produced, both Another Day in the Sun as well as What I Already Know, this is was a Kickstarter project, is that right?
Yeah, it's a completely 100% fan funded record. It's the first time I've sort of delved into that arena at the coaxing of a lot of my artist friends, and it was very successful. It was really fun to do a project where your fans are actually involved, from the suggestion box,
So, I mean, is this kind of the direction that you think music is headed, getting away from the labels and going into self-production?
Well, it all depends on what the brass ring is for you. If you're making a great living and you don't want to be gone, 230 days a year, and the success to you is having a great return with the product that you put out, and you have a great fan base, and you're able to be home more and not be a slave to everybody else, then that's the way to go. Go the independent route. But if it's more about, if it's about something else on a far grander scale, like massive, you really, a large part of that comes from having a really great label that has a lot of money, because, mass media promotion, it costs a lot of money, and you have to have a machine like a label to really do a lot of that kind of stuff. But it just depends on what you want to do. However, to answer your question, there are a ton of artists, successful artists in the past, that are actually doing the whole independent route, because it's just more, it's easier, and you see a quicker return, and it's a lot less stress,
Bryan, how can people get in touch with you or follow what you're doing? Do you have a website?
Yeah, they can go to BryanWhite.com, Bryan with a Y, and then I'm at Bryan_White at Twitter. Actually, you can navigate to all those places, Facebook and Twitter, from my website as well, and they can grab the new CD there, or they can also find Shine at iTunes.com as well. So.
Well, I really appreciate what you're doing. The motivation, the life story, all things that I think are motivational to our audience, and I think also we look forward to hearing from more segments, some songs from you. I would assume that you're concerned about the direction of the country. That's part of what motivates. I certainly appreciate the activism that you've shown up here in Alaska, and hope that we can get you back up here. Do you have any impending visits planned for Alaska?
Man, well, I'm always going there in my head. I love it. I think it's an amazing place, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. I've been there, I think, 5 times now. My first time was in October of '96, and there was a massive blizzard, so we didn't get to see anything, and all of our plans got foiled, But I've been there several times, and I've been treated so well. You guys have made me feel like family, and I've had so many great experiences, and I love your passion. And everybody in your camp, man, I'm a major supporter of what you do, and I'm on the boat with you. And anytime you guys need me for anything,
Bryan.
I'm there.
We've got to wrap it up. We'll have you back. This show is made possible by the McPherson Group Tax Defense Attorneys. BeatIRS.com, rescuing Americans from IRS tyranny. The Joe Miller Show will be back with you tomorrow. More great guests.